This is Steve Brulé with Studio Brulé, and I'm here live with Catherine Kitsis, who is the first and founding member of the new Liberty Bells, a show that we're hoping to start up in the new year, early in the new year, in which some very strong voices, female voices from the UK and London in particular, are going to be commenting on cultural issues and critiquing them. Catherine, can you say hello to everyone here?
Hello, Internet.
So, Catherine, you were the Liberty Bells is your brainchild. What sparked you to start this up?
Well, so I have been, since 2013, I have been writing my blog called Female Fed Up with Feminism. And I'm not a very prolific blogger, but I can just about manage 140 characters a day. So I've been a tweeter, and a tweet. And I've also been keeping up with the whole kind of YouTube, what should we call ourselves? I don't know, the community that is critical of the identity politics that is going on at the moment. And I noticed that, oh, sorry, do you want to say something, Steve?
No, I was just going to say it's a growing community for sure.
Yep. So what I noticed was there are tons of women in the community.
I think you might you might be covering your speaker or something, because it's a bit.
Can you hear me now?
The mic. Yeah, I think you're hearing a little bit better there.
Okay, I don't know what happened. So I noticed there were a lot of women speaking out. Most of them tended to be from the US and Canada. I'm talking about YouTube particularly now, so the people with their faces out there. And there are a lot of people from the UK, but the UK YouTubers tend to be guys. So I thought there was a kind of gap in the market for UK female voices to kind of get out there on YouTube. And there are a lot of us around. We kind of all knew each other from Twitter, that's on blogs and that sort of thing, but our faces weren't out there, and I just could see that there was this whole community sort of going on. And our faces, the faces of kind of UK women aren't necessarily as represented as they could be. So yeah, that was where my idea came from, and I tried to get a group of ladies together. So yeah, we have anywhere between 2 to 5 people will be on board.
Yes, and unfortunately, we have a little technical problem with one of them right now, who is, I believe, trying to get herself free to come and join us. Elizabeth, I think, is going to join us, and you may have read that on the blog posting. We've got about 15 viewers right now, and for viewers, I'm going to try and keep track of the comments. So if you have any questions as we talk along here today, put them in there. I can't guarantee that I'll notice them, but I'll try to keep an eye on it. 17 viewers now, so people are starting to tune in.
Excellent.
Catherine, what's your background for the viewers? What have you been doing up to this point in your life?
What have I been doing up to this point in my life? Yeah. So yeah, I was at university about more than 10 years ago now. Luckily, before this whole social justice identity politics thing was as crazy as it is now. But I was aware I was at a very left-wing university, but it was okay, and I still had sort of loads of friends who had very different politics to me, and we could just kind of avoid the subject. And it never was a major issue really while I was at university. And then a few years later, so I guess, yeah, I was an actor for a while. Let's not talk about that.
You want to talk about that?
Let's not talk about that.
Is it embarrassing? Should people Google it?
Don't go there. Don't go there. But yeah, so it was, I guess, around sort of 2012, 2013, it got to the stage where I'm sure everyone can sympathize with now. You cannot open a newspaper, you cannot open a magazine, you cannot watch the news without hearing story after story after story of how awful it is to be a woman in the West, and how oppressive and awful Western society is, and how it needs to be totally broken down and built again. And I just was reading this thinking, what planet are these people on? What? And I noticed a lot of people that I knew because I was in the arts, and also I had friends from university who tended to lean very much left. People were kind of saying things to me that were just outrageous. And I was sort of getting into these disagreements with people, and they were saying things to me like, oh, you know, you've chosen the career that you've chosen because you were brainwashed from when you were a tiny kid. And I was saying things like, no, I had every opportunity, and my family just encouraged me to do anything I wanted to do, and they supported me through everything, and every opportunity was open to me, and I was encouraged, and all this kind of stuff. And they said, oh, no, the only reason you're saying that is because you've internalized your misogyny. And I was just like, what? This is crazy. And there was one moment that angered me so much. Oh, hello, Elizabeth.
We do have Elizabeth. Elizabeth, you're back. Welcome.
Hello. Sorry about that.
And Elizabeth is number 2 on the second for today, obviously, of the Liberty Bells, also from London. And Elizabeth, you've been blogging about anti-feminism, and you're quite outspoken about that for some time. So welcome to the group.
Thank you very much.
I'm just hoping that we just cut off Catherine briefly there. So let's just, Catherine, if we can finish off your story, and then we'll come right back to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah, well, the story of the moment when I decided to start my blog, or the moment that inspired me to start my blog. So I had just got married, and it was the day after I was going to say my wedding, but it wasn't my wedding, it was our wedding, our wedding. And there was this brunch which everyone was invited to, and it was quite a formal affair. And some ladies who I'm very good friends with, and they are some of the loveliest people, they're really lovely. But the conversation took a turn that ended up in them saying that I was evil for not being a feminist.
Really?
At my wedding. Well, it was the day after my wedding, but it was an event that was, it was, they were receiving our hospitality. So I spent my honeymoon rather peeved. I was not.
Imagine.
I was lying awake, just the way that these people take ownership of the truth. That is what this is. It's this battle is about. There is one group of people who want to own the truth and who want to push it on everyone else, and who silence people who disagree with them. And this was way back in 2013. I hadn't, none of this stuff had happened, all the crazy things that have happened now, all of this, internet harassment stuff, it wasn't big news particularly. Donald Trump had not happened, Gamergate hadn't happened, none of that had happened. This wasn't cool. Talking about these issues wasn't cool in those days. And I just thought, I have to say something. I'm lying here, unable to sleep, just so upset. And so that was how my journey started, and how I found a community, and how I felt less alone, and how I realized I'm not wicked or evil because I have these opinions. There's a community of rational, intelligent people who care about the world, who just have a different view, and their view is not allowed to be mainstream. And that's why it's really important for us all to be here and just let everyone know that the silent majority, because it is the silent majority, I think, who does agree with us, and let them know that they aren't alone.
So, Catherine, that comprises most of your social group. Then, do you have any social environment that is supportive of your, which is increasingly, I'm going to presume, anti-feminist stance on things?
So a lot of people that I'm friends with, it's not like every single person I'm friends with is like a complete, there are some very, very hardcore SJWs that I'm friends with. But a lot of people are really receptive. A lot of people really listen. It's not everyone. It's certainly not everyone. But even increasingly, as this has gone on and as this has got more crazy, I'm now speaking to full-on kind of Guardian reading people who consider themselves leftists and people who would consider themselves good socialists, who are saying that they've had enough and they think this is silly, and they are in certain groups, particularly ones who are in the arts, they're actually afraid to give their full opinion. So this is, you know, it's like, it's the French Revolution. You know, they came for Robespierre. They're going to come for you.
Exactly, and that was Peterson's point as well. Elizabeth, can we were just talking about, with Catherine, we started out giving a background of where her life was before today. So what brought you to this point, and why are you speaking out as a Liberty Belle?
Okay, well, I was brought up as a sort of regressive left bad feminist, if we can use that term. That's a Roseanne Gay term, I believe her name is.
Maybe you could enlighten us. What does bad feminist mean?
Yeah, a bad feminist is sort of a bit of a half-assed feminist, shall we say, who maybe shaves her legs but still believes in equality.
Horrors,
I think
right?
that's
Shaving those
actually
legs.
And then I fell pregnant when I was 19, and I just had this sort of this feeling of this borders of the world, and it's kind of brought me to feminism and brought me to wanting to connect with women. And so I started reading a lot of feminism, and I was reading Naomi Wolf and Germaine Greer. You know, some of it I was agreeing with and some of it I wasn't, and I sort of thought that was okay, because I was thinking, oh, there's, you know, a million different ways to be a feminist, and I was kind of reflecting on the dictionary definition and thinking that's all good. And then I started talking to feminists, both online and and I discovered that actually there's not all these different ways to be a feminist. It's quite dogmatic. You know, if you don't subscribe to patriarchy theory or rape culture or toxic masculinity, they'll tell you to hand in your feminist card. And at the same time as I was going through that experience with feminists being sort of ostracized, I was meeting people like Catherine. She is one of the first sort of anti-feminists I met, who were talking to me about men's issues. And so
now, you're quite young, Elizabeth. How long ago was this, and how old? When did you give birth? I understand you have a son, right?
I've got 2 sons.
2 sons. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when did this process start for you? How many years ago would you say?
So that would have been about 8 years ago now.
Okay. And having sons, did that play a role in your looking more critically upon feminism, which is often very critical of anything male?
Having sons makes me worry for the future, for their future. You know, and especially I've sort of, when I get talking to men about fathers' rights and their experiences of being separated from their children, that is my one major concern for their future.
Yeah, well, that's a very reasonable concern for sure. I have a son as well, and my experience seeing him go through the school system is incredible. They were indoctrinated in feminist ideas from kindergarten right through to graduating from high school.
Wow. I have noticed some sort of ideologically driven ideas, not any feminism yet. And actually, I was really pleased last year because our school took on 4 male teachers.
Oh.
So I think maybe the
time.
headmistress is onto something. Yeah.
So
we might
maybe
have a good school there.
Right now then, Elizabeth, I'm just going to call on both of you to sort of give a sense of what your interests are in your initial posts that you're going to be discussing in the upcoming series. So Catherine, can you give us a sense of your primary interests?
Yeah, so the first video I did is about the wage gap. And it's just talking about how the wage gap sort of, it compares median wages. To get that, women are paid 20% less than men. You have to look at the wages of all women next to the wages of all men. And if you go into like for like, actually, and I was doing all of this from a UK perspective, because if you go to YouTube, you'll find Christina Hoff Sommers and people like that, but they're talking about the US a lot of the time. So I really wanted to make videos that focused on statistics from the UK.
Has anyone else done anything on the wage gap in the UK?
Yeah, people have. Kate Andrews from the, what are they called, the IEA. She's done a really good job. She's gone on like you know, news programs, and there's a very famous video of her debating with Kate Smurthwaite, and she's saying, look, if you actually look at the official ONS data, women in the UK from between 20 and 40 years old out earn men, and it was not penetrating. There were no listening ears on. God bless Kate Smurthwaite. So yeah, Kate has done a really good job, but the focus of that video is more, I showed some examples of how actually children, one example I use is how children are being taught that for exactly the same work, women get paid less, and that is not true. It's certainly not true that they get paid 20% less. And that my point was that many of the prominent feminists and you know, people like the Fawcett Society, they know that. They know that the 20% like-for-like thing is a lie, and they still perpetuate it. And that is what is just so shocking. So,
deliberate deceit from our educators.
So that was my first video. What was my second video about? I did a video about education and how all these measures that are being used to help girls, if you really look at it objectively in the UK, boys across so many measures are doing worse, and they're year by year it's getting worse for them. So shouldn't that be a more urgent problem? That was one of my videos. And then I looked at the criminal justice system, and again, how there's so much emphasis on every point where women may be experiencing any kind of, you know, chagrin because of the system. And yet, if you look at the huge, you know, well, certainly in terms of a greater number of men are affected, but sort of what appear to be the greater disparities, what appear to be the greater problems, they are male problems, and they're getting worse, and nobody cares. So.
And it seems like right across in many jurisdictions in the world, many groups feminist groups are trying to banish or women's prisons altogether. There's a couple of movements in North America where they want to prohibit imprisoning women.
Yeah, I talk about that in my video. There's every few months there's some new campaign to either put much fewer number of women in prison or to abolish women's prisons altogether. And of course, the argument for lower incarceration rates, I'm sure, is a very valid argument in terms of, you know, stopping people from reoffending. But if you look at the numbers, the number of women being imprisoned is going like this, and the number of men being imprisoned is going like this.
Very high.
That is just not reflected in where the urgency just isn't there to help.
Well, it's certainly a very important topic, especially as the cost of all of these things starts escalating. Let's move over to Elizabeth. Elizabeth, what are your primary interests in your initial videos of the series?
Yeah, my first video is on male genital mutilation or circumcision, which is not a term that I use. I always use male genital mutilation because it puts it alongside female genital mutilation where it should be. And yeah, that's quite an interesting presentation. I sort of looked up a lot of history to do with it and investigated a study called the Global Survey of Circumcision Harm, which was done by a guy called Philip Hammond, I think, which is very sad, to be honest. I think it was completed by 1,000 men, and they're talking about all the different physical and psychological harms they've suffered as a result of circumcision. And
a powerful scene in the Red Pill movie about circumcision. They don't treat it in great depth, but the visuals of the procedure is pretty gruesome. I'm guessing
I was
your kids aren't, your sons aren't circumcised, or do you want to say?
absolutely not. No,
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it wasn't really a choice that we had to make because people generally don't in the UK.
Oh, really?
And it
That's
wasn't until
unusual. Yeah.
I sort of got into men's rights that I ever really thought about it.
It's still, I think, very common in the US, and I think in Canada it's roughly 50-50. Newborns being circumcised or not circumcised, but don't quote me on the numbers. This is just off the top of my head. Is there any other issues that are pressing on your mind, Elizabeth?
Yeah, fathers' rights is the other massive issue for me.
Custody?
Because, and children having the right to see their father and for him to play a meaningful role in their life. And also, you know, apart from the fact that they simply have that right, I think that a lot of societal problems are them not having that male role model.
Yeah. Maybe both of you can answer this. Have you been following, I'm just going to go off into other topics now. Have you been following the Peterson case, and which is touching on freedom of expression, specifically the laws about freedom of expression and in the education system? Have you followed that at all, and do you have any comments on it? We could start with you, Catherine.
Yeah, I was riveted. So his initial videos were very good, where he and they were so reasoned, and they had so much evidence because he's an academic. Like he's studied this for decades. He's so knowledgeable. And one of the I can't remember the name of the intervention, but he was talking about, one of his points that really struck me was the point he was making about when you go in with interventions, you really need to be very, very sure, because you don't know what effect the intervention is actually going to have. So he was making this point that there was some kind of intervention that was done on disadvantaged children, and they followed them for, like, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. And apparently it very famously, it had the opposite effect. And that really struck me, because when I was researching this education thing, I read a lot of examples from different places where it was talking about how female, like girls that was sort of doing their A-levels and stuff, if they were shown pictures of sort of female doctors, it actually made them have less confidence that they could go and become a doctor or something. So it's almost like this reverse psychology of, oh, you need all this help and support and encouragement because it's so difficult for women to become doctors. And that, you know, it looks like in some cases that may almost be having like a reverse effect to what's intended. So that was what really struck me with Peterson's kind of initial videos. They were just so, he was just so knowledgeable. And then when it all blew up, oh my goodness, his speech where they switched off his amplifier and it was just, oh my, I had butterflies, his bravery, and that speech he made was just incredible. He's a hero. He's an absolute hero.
He's very bold as well. He's taking his career in his hands, right?
Yeah, and what also struck me about it was the lies, like the way that there was footage of these social justice people literally physically assaulting people.
Yeah.
You know, damaging property and you know, switching off his amplifier and making nuisance of themselves. There was a video of them assaulting someone, not very seriously, but still. And then they had the cheek to say that some neo-Nazis had been there and assaulted someone where there was no evidence, and apparently it was just someone walking their dog and someone crashed into. It was just a complete lie, and then they spun that public narrative. They just turned the truth 180 degrees around. That it's just absolutely brazen. Oh, and lying to the police as well. That was another one. So yeah, this whole story is just I'm riveted by it.
Terrific. And how about you, Elizabeth? Have you followed the story at all?
I haven't followed the case. I've watched some of his videos, but not anything to do with this, I'm afraid.
He's pretty surprisingly articulate. I knew he would be articulate, but when I watched him, the more I've watched of him, it's very impressive how much he does know and how well he articulates certain issues. If you have a chance, check out what they call the debate, which is more a forum that they had at the University of Toronto, where they stacked 3 feminists, 1 feminist moderator, so-called moderator, and 2 feminist speakers against him on the issue of Bill C-16, which was a bill to add transgenderism to the existing human rights code. He's quite articulate in there, and his opponents focus on the law, and he tries to focus on the consequences of restricting freedoms of speech. It devolves into just it's not much of a debate, but it's interesting to watch his view on it. I'm going to just say to the viewers, we've got about 45 people viewing right now. If you have some specific questions for the Liberty Bells, put them in there, and we'll see if we can get them to comment on that topics or concerns. Keep in mind the focus of the Liberty Bells is on the issues as they are in the UK. So it's sort of the UK version of the Femengo File and Karen Strawn, and which is the Honey Badgers, and Christian Hoff Summers, that bunch. Catherine, tell us more about how you got the Liberty Bells together.
Oh, well, yeah, as I was saying, I knew everyone on Twitter. There is this incredible community, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to say that UK women aren't out there and that they aren't speaking, because they are. It's just in this particular YouTube community, there aren't that many British female faces and voices in YouTube. And I think that if you look at the kind of audiences people are getting, I mean, obviously, like, people like Sargon are incredibly successful, but there's a huge audience out there for them, and I think it is a way to reach more people and to be part of the community. So, yeah, I organised a dinner. That was how it started. Not everyone was at the initial dinner, which is great to just, like, meet up in person and, yeah, catch up with everyone. And yeah, it's been a bit of a bumpy ride, because we were all of us were pretty worried about putting our faces out there. And to all the viewers, I just want to say you are the first people I have come out to 3 years after I started. This is the first time I have hidden my real name very, very well. Nobody knew who I was. So yeah, we've all.
Are there some existing speakers that really inspired you? Some of the existing speakers out anti-feminist?
In the community, well, obviously Karen Strawn is, yeah, she is so special. Special in a good way. And what I love about Karen is I think she is best when in front of a hostile audience. She just, whatever they throw at her, she just comes back. She is just so sharp. I did see her speak at the International Men's Conference in the UK, and we were a friendly audience, and it was great to watch her speak, but she always, to me, is best when she's, you know, in the Red Pill film with Cassie J, you know, when she's got these probing questions to answer, she just smashes it every time, she just smashes it.
Very insightful, yeah.
Yeah.
How about you, Elizabeth? Is there a particular speaker out there that inspires you?
Yeah, other than Karen, it would be Janice Fiamengo. Her videos are so informative, and yeah, she's got that insight going as well. She's fantastic.
Yeah, Janice knows her stuff too. Her knowledge is more targeted at the insiders of higher education as feminism there, because that's been her life. So she's tearing them apart episode by episode. Very happy to have her on Studio Brulé.
I share her videos, a couple of them. There's one on suffrage that she's done that I sort of will give to people whose initial response to me being an anti-feminist is like, but don't you think women should have the vote? So I'll say, well, you know, actually, the suffrage issue is more complex than it's made out, and I'll show them that video by Janice. And also I find myself sharing her video from 2015 International Men's Day, which is all about masculinity and the positive aspects of it. Toxic masculinity comes up. I find myself reaching for that.
A toxic masculinity, is that a focus that you're going to or an area you're going to focus on in your presentations?
That would be a good idea, actually. I think I should.
Yeah, I think with two sons, it's I would think it's a pretty important issue for you.
Yeah, I saw a good debate not so long ago entitled "Is Masculinity Toxic for Boys?" And it was wonderful because the entire panel was made up of people defending masculinity. There was a guy called John Waters, who's an Irish ex-left journalist who sort of discovered the father's rights issue, and he went into the office with and sort of ready to see all of his colleagues like, I've just discovered this great injustice and you're all going to be really like shocked and behind me and we're going to fix this. And when he told them about sort of father's rights, they all said like, no, they shut him down completely and ostracized him and said, we're not going there. We're not going there.
And Camille Paglia was on that
there was
panel as well, wasn't it?
Camille Paglia, yeah.
Oh yeah.
And Martin Daubney, who is a British newspaper columnist who writes very well on men's issues, and another boy, like a Scouse boy, wasn't it? Do you remember his name?
He was lovely. Yeah, he was a proper gorgeous, like Scouser. He was gorgeous. Yeah.
I do follow him on Twitter.
Yeah.
But it was really nice to see masculinity defended for once.
And there was this beautiful, beautiful moment when a very kind of strident feminist stood up and addressed directly to Camille Paglia something, and she just came out with this train of like all the feminist kind of buzzwords. She was like, what is it? It's the whole world has misogyny. Can't we just teach men not to rape? And it was just like every single buzzword she was coming out with. And I don't know if there's a video of this, but Camille Paglia's reaction, it just needs to become a Vine or something, or a meme. Like her face was like, and she was just going, "You are such a victim." Like it was her reaction. Oh no, she was just, "Oh, you're such a stereotype. Oh, you're such a bitch." It was priceless, and I need to find a video of it and make it into a Vine, because it was just,
she's a fierce intellect for sure. Yeah. That she can call all that.
Mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, the moment for me of that debate was a feminist stood up and said, you know, why is the panel not balanced? Is there anyone here arguing that masculinity is toxic for boys? And John Waters said, you've got 40 years of feminist propaganda doing that masculinity is toxic for boys. So
yeah, bizarre that they even can get away with this kind of implication, that the implication being that something fundamentally wrong with being male.
Yeah, although these people are, as further to what Elizabeth was saying at the beginning of the stream, it's not just, feminism nowadays isn't just about believing men and women should have equal rights. As you were saying, you've got to believe in all sorts of other things as well, otherwise they'll chuck you out. And one of those things is gender neutralism. And they have a problem with masculinity. They also have a problem with femininity. And they just have a problem with gender. And they really... And
that's a good point, though, what you just said there. They have a problem with both genders. They don't want women to express their feminine urges, and they're really against men.
Have a problem. They think that gender is socially constructed. And therefore they think that it should all be, you know, that this is the whole gender neutral argument, and it's a really, if you think about this gender neutral argument, it's A, completely stupid, and B, like, where does it lead? If you just start thinking about it, and it leads to these ridiculous things of toxic masculinity, all this kind of it's just so dumb. Frankly, that's kind of my main criticism of it. Is it's just not a very, it's not based in any kind of science either. It's based in feminist science, obviously. But I think
it's based in feminist biology.
In feminist biology, but I think these are the roads that you end up going down when you have to believe that gender is a social construct. And that's, if you think about it, that's a totally different belief than believing that men and women should have equal rights. It's really sad that there's this movement that is so invested in this belief that really has nothing to do with the egalitarian side of things.
So how was International Men's Day? I understand some of you went to the march there.
That was me and Natty went to the march. Natty is another Liberty Belle who can't be with us tonight, although she is around online. Links maybe to post up here with her talking. We went on a march from the Royal Courts of Justice in London down to Parliament.
Terrific. And how was the public response to your march?
Well, we had a few sort of bus drivers and lorry drivers honking us, which seemed apt. They seemed like the sort of people who would get what we were talking about. And yeah, a few kind of snotty looks from some young women, I'd say.
And did you guys go to the Red Pill? Has it been shown in London now? I think it was recently, right?
Several times, yeah. It was shown twice that day.
Which our very own Natoya organised, I think. He was...
I'm sorry, what was that?
Natoya organised those screenings, I think. Our own Natoya.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
She was involved in it, yeah.
She was one of the organisers, yeah.
Yeah, and how did it go? Like, what was the audience response? And there was a Q&A as well, right?
Yeah, I was not at that screening. I was at a later screening with no Q&A, but the Q&A has gone up online.
Oh, really? Okay, maybe I can get that link from you and post that out. Or if somebody in the audience, if viewers, if you have that link, if you can put it in the comments, that'd be terrific. Yeah,
the film was great though. What was really nice was the screening I went to. There was a lot of people there who fairly uninitiated. Like, there was a comment from one gentleman I spoke to who said that he had a look at it and, you know, was interested in the fact that somebody, the filmmaker, had changed her mind, and that was the sole reason he'd gone to see it. And there were a lot of people sharing notes and trying to learn from each other. I took a friend who was completely uninitiated, and it's opened his eyes a little bit, I think.
Terrific.
I think the thing about Red Pill, it's quite basic information, but it's really, really good for people who don't know anything about the men's rights movement.
Yeah, I think that's key right there. That's been my experience as well, is that people who have been following the issues for the last few years haven't seen, say, new information. And Cassie J comments on that as well. It's more directed towards people who are just now getting to know it. So any other messages you have for the viewers? We're on here about 45 minutes. We have about 10, 15 minutes left. Catherine, you got any messages for the viewers?
Any messages for the viewer? Yeah, I guess just it's really taken me such a long time to kind of feel pluck up the courage to actually put my face out there. When I started doing this, it was pretty much only the men's rights activists that were out there, and they were so supportive, and I've had support from them and from the whole community. But in 2013, as I said, this was not cool, and they did warn me. I was actually not even planning to be anonymous, and they said, no, you should start off anonymous. You can always come out, but once you're out, you're out. And I've met people who have had some pretty bad stuff happen to them. No jokes. And I'm not just talking about nasty comments online. It's actually affected their careers and their lives. But now I did feel safer, putting a group of ladies together like this, but also just because so many people have been doing it now, and I think a lot of people are a bit more wise to the kind of nastiness that the other side can get up to. I think a lot of people understand it now, and also I think they have stopped. I think they've started realizing it doesn't make them look good when they come after people, and obviously I don't know if I'm important enough for them to come after either. I certainly at the moment.
Well, that will remain to be seen. If you
but I just
out there get real controversial, they may want to shut you down.
Yeah, and I just, the fact that it has taken me so long, and the fact that I was so afraid kept kind of galvanizing me and kept making me want to do it more, because that's how they silence you. That's how they silence you. They make you afraid. They make you afraid to speak up in a room full of people because you're worried everyone will turn on you. They make you afraid to just, give your opinion, publicly. And that's how they win. And it's bullying. It really, really is. And the name calling, they won't engage with your arguments. They'll call you names. If you're male, they'll attack you for being male. If you're white, they'll attack you for being white. I don't know what category I fall under. I guess I'm kind of olive skin. I don't know if I count. I don't know.
Once you start criticizing them, they'll find a category for you.
They'll find a category. And it's all bullying tactics, all the accusations. They need to argue with your points, and if they're not arguing with your points, then they have no arguments to fall back on. So I hope that if they do criticize me, and if they do, if I am challenged, which I almost certainly will be, I just hope that it's on the points and on the arguments and on the logic, and if we can stop the name calling and the identity politics.
Well, the first charge will be that you have internalized misogyny, of course, right? You obviously hate yourself if you're criticizing feminism.
Soggy knees.
Soggy knees, right?
I was playing with my son in the park a few weeks ago, and I ended up getting soggy knees, and I took a picture of my knees, and I nearly tweeted it, but they just looked so ugly and baggy and gross, and I just was like, no, I'm not going to tweet about my soggy knees.
Well, there might be a episode in that experience for you.
Yeah, these are my soggy knees.
Right.
Yeah.
How about you, Elizabeth? Have you got a message for the audience in your experience so far, and decision to come out and be very public about your criticisms?
Well, I mean, for me, I suppose it all comes down to I've got bipolar disorder, and during my depression, where I had a major episode of depression, I was very much a closed book, and that didn't work out for me. And so I've kind of flipped it and gone completely the other way now. And it's not as scary as it sort of seems, to be honest. I tend to find that people are quite receptive, and that for every, bad response you get, you're going to meet some really interesting, genuine, rational people who make it completely worthwhile. So if you're there unsure of whether to come out, I would say definitely do. What's the worst that can happen? Although saying that, I don't work, I'm a stay-at-home mum, so what the worst that can happen is probably that your job would be in peril. So I don't know. That's how it is for me.
Well, it's a good point that the what's at risk is different for each person individually.
But I would like to make everyone aware that a book has come out today called Sex Difference Explained, by Steve Moxon, who's written another indispensable book called The Woman Racket, which is all about the science and some of the politics behind gender. And Sex Difference Explained is available on Amazon. It's also available on the New Male Studies website format, but I can't find the link right now. But should I leave
this right in the comments? And what was the author's name again?
Steve Moxon, Moxon.
Why do you bring up this particular book?
I discovered The Woman Racket a few years ago, which is a really excellent book that I refer to all the time. I learned about the Frankfurt School in there. He talks about gender differences, about suffrage, all kinds of stuff in there. And then I happened to meet him a couple of years ago, which was really exciting for me, and we've kept in touch. And he's just brought this book out, so I've only read the first chapter, which sort of concludes that the sort of non-difference of the sexes theory and patriarchy theory are completely incompatible, because if there's no biological difference between the sexes, how can one sex oppress the other? Mm-hmm. And also that they're completely unscientific because they're unfalsifiable. And there's another 25 chapters, which I'm looking forward to reading. Say goodbye.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much, ladies. I think this will probably wrap it up for right now, unless you have something else you wanted to say, either of you. So the message that I'm getting from both of you out of that last bit is that, folks, if you're feeling afraid to speak your mind and to ask questions or doubt in public, either in your own social group or at any public event, then that is what the social oppression is. That's the manifestation of that in your life. So think about that if you want to respond to that by shutting up and retreating from the world, or you want to respond to that by gathering your forces together, your courage together, and speak out anyways. And I think the latter is the healthier option. So thank you both for joining us today, and thank everybody for watching. And we'll be looking forward to the Liberty Bells very soon on Studio Brulé. And the Liberty Bells, there is a Liberty Bells channel. Somebody was asking about that, a direct link to subscribe to. And I'll get together with both of you after we stop broadcast here, and we'll put the link out to that under the description through a direct link to the Liberty Bells videos when they arrive early in 2017. You wanted to say something, Catherine?
So one of my jobs was to find someone to do like a logo for us or some artwork or something, and I've just failed.
Oh,
so
okay.
If anyone out there wants to contact me, I'm at Female Fed Up With on Twitter, and yeah, we're basically like low to zero budget at the moment. So if you would just like the privilege of having your logo used for the Liberty Bells, please contact me.
Challenge has been issued for any of you artistically inclined, talented viewers who want to donate a logo for the Liberty Bells. So I'll put the information in the low bar, or you can contact Catherine. You have your Twitter handle there. It's what was it again? Is it Feminist? Women Fed Up?
Female Fed Up With.
At Female Fed Up With, right. I think that is in the blog post as well. So thank you everybody for watching, and that's it for our show. Good night.
Good night.